Why are you laughing at me? Yes, you are.
Go.
We've been traveling now for almost 6 months, so we thought we'd do a Q&A plus check-in. What did we learn in the last 6 months traveling full time, or what would we do differently with this?
So I think there's a number of things that we talked about, but I think the first one has to do with flights, because that's a big part of what we're doing as we travel around. Thankfully, we're not flying super often. So I think a big thing with flights that we've learned, number one, is that flying outside of the United States is not like flying inside the United States. We've flown internationally, but I don't know if we've ever done it consistently, so I think maybe that's where it's...
Or we're coming from the United States and always heading back rather than jumping.
Yeah, I think that's... You're probably right there. That's the key. What we found is that airlines, specifically their standards and regulations as far as baggage specifically, is way different than you encounter in the United States. So they're much smaller sizes that they allow, much smaller weights for carry-on baggage. We had the assumption leaving the United States is, hey, we'll all have a carry-on bag. It's just a standard bag. It's not even anything big with our backpack, and we won't have to check bags, and we'll save on cost of luggage, and that's not the case. You have to basically check your bag if it's bigger than a backpack on all the flights. And your backpack as a carry-on has to be under 7 kilograms, which is roughly 15 pounds. And they weigh you quite often as you check in or before you board the flight. Sorry, that's a long way of getting there, but baggage is way different. Early on, we had to pay for extra bags because we anticipated we could carry stuff on. We bought tickets where they didn't include baggage, so we had to pay for some extra bags. So then moving forward, and what we learned as we kind of continued to book flights is that we booked a little bit better tickets, ones that included luggage, ones that allowed for more changes to your flight free of charge if things were to come up that you had to change your flight.
We've talked about it just because we've had to check so many bags. We are traveling with 5 checked bags at this point. Would we do that differently?
Which is 1 per person.
Not a lot at all, and one of the bags is full of snorkeling stuff. So if we did things differently, we have talked about maybe it would be beneficial to have 3 bigger bags that luggage.
We just kind of consolidate all of our things into those and just check those. But it's different, way different luggage wise.
Yeah, than what we were thinking.
Than in the United States.
So let's expound on, you mentioned the changing, because we've had issues where things have been delayed, like a flight's been delayed. One in particular, from New Zealand to Fiji. Our flight was delayed from New Zealand getting to Fiji, so we missed our connection flight. And because we had the basic, super cheap standard airfare, they wouldn't work with us, the flight that was delayed. Luckily, the other airline was amazing and helped us out. And that's something else that we've learned is if you can, you book all the way through on the same airline, because that was their reasoning why they couldn't help us, because we weren't booked all the way through, even though they didn't even go to the location that we were going to. With that too, is if you do have to change airlines, make sure you allot at least 4 hours, but we have now changed it where we're just spending the night somewhere normally, just to make sure we have no issues. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think that's a little excessive potentially, but that is only if I'm flying from A to B on one airline and then B to C on a different airline completely. Just because we had that kind of nightmare scenario where we missed the connection, just to kind of build that buffer in, give yourself at least a few hours, because I think we had 3 hours initially and that wasn't even enough. And that's just one example. There's been times where we've had to change some things and do some other stuff where just get pay a little bit more up front for that kind of higher tier ticket so that you can have changes to your schedule. And you don't have to pay additional things out of pocket at that point, because it's a lot more money at that point.
Something else that we did learn when we had a layover in New Zealand is...
So we're going Cook Islands through New Zealand, so we're just stopping through to get on another plane to Fiji.
We learned about a transit visa. We had never heard of this ever before, and so that's something that now we always check. If you have a layover in another country than what your final destination is, make sure you check for that visa as well. That's something that we were not expecting getting to the airport and had to pay.
So to be clear, we showed up in Cook Islands to check in for our flight going again through New Zealand over to Fiji, and there's a transit visa requirement in New Zealand. So in order to even just fly in and be in the airport, you have to have a visa, and you have to pay for that visa just for a 30-minute, 1 hour, whatever your layover is, to be in New Zealand to get on another flight.
Something else that we have found very valuable is just picking better traveling times with flights. Maybe not the red-eye flights, because our kids are and we're exhausted by the time we get to the final destination. So just being more mindful on our times.
Yeah. The big one is changes will happen, just like anything in life. Things come up. We're trying to plan, not crazy far in advance, but at least a few months in advance is where we're booking kind of the flights and the accommodations and things so we can get a better rate and have things planned out and all that fun stuff. But things have come up. Specifically, as one example, like civil unrest. We were supposed to go to New Caledonia, which is a country off of Australia a little ways, and they had riots and civil unrest, and it's ongoing, and flights, our airline that we were going to fly out there canceled our flight and made changes, and just crazy things happened, and so we ultimately decided not to go and had to rebook, and now we're going to Indonesia during that time. But anyway, that's one example. Things come up, and trying to deal with the unexpectedness of that.
Of traveling.
Yeah.
Just this week alone, we've had 2 in 2 days where the first day was our Airbnb canceled our reservation that's happening in 2 months?
Yeah.
So they canceled our reservation, so we were scrambling to find a new place. And then the next day in Indonesia, there is
a volcano
that erupted. And so airlines are not flying there currently. We leave in a week to go there, and there's talk that they might still be closed. So we're trying to figure out, plan B and C and all the fun stuff. So it's always like this continuous monitoring things, and things change. So you just have to be open for change.
I guess with that too, obviously travel insurance is good as a backup. That is kind of a hassle to try and go through any of that, but it's good to have. Yeah, just kind of rolling with it and knowing that things are going to come up and things are going to happen.
For example, we were planning on going to Egypt on this year-long trip, but because of everything going on in that general location, we just don't feel good taking our kids there. If it was just the 2 of us, it would be a different story, but we're also mindful about things with our kids, taking our kids to places. That plays in a role about lots of places like staying in accommodations and stuff, and we'll get into the cost of all that later, but that comes into play with a lot of our things. So that's an example of another way our itinerary changed than what we planned on. I would think our biggest struggle so far on the whole trip is getting the refund for the flight to the New Caledonia that Eric was talking about. How long have you been working on that?
So it's been since Fiji.
So 2 months? 3 months? Yeah,
3 months now, going on 3 months plus. Is just trying to get a refund from them for the flights that they canceled, and they've approved the refund. It's now just trying to get a refund.
Trying to get the money.
That's been a hassle and an ongoing adventure.
What is something that we didn't really anticipate, and that was renting cars in more locations than what we thought we would. For example, we didn't think we were going to rent a car in Cook Islands.
Because they have a bus system that goes around the island. It's a pretty small island.
Yeah, which that would work. It would work fabulously if you're there for a short period of time. But with Eric was diving every day, and for us, the car was amazing. I'm glad we got
also
it.
too, just the amount of time we were there and having to go get groceries at the bigger store up in town, and you could have done it on a bus, but it would have been much more difficult. Long story short, getting a car there as an example, getting a car in
Perth was another one.
Yeah, getting a car in Perth, that was actually really nice, and we were able to explore a lot more outside of the city and the surrounding areas.
We were planning on having a car in Sydney. That's where we're currently at while we're filming this. And we ended up canceling it after we really thought about things. And public transportation has been amazing here.
Yeah.
So I think it depends too on if you're okay and just staying in your general location.
What we've learned too, as well, is don't get a car for the entire time. We'll get a car for a day or 2 and then go out and do the things that we want to explore outside and then drop it off. And so your cost is just minimal for those couple days. Just be flexible with what you're kind of doing and kind of think through other other options, I guess, and what you're really planning on doing for that location.
Yeah. How is planning our trips?
So yeah, I think the unexpected with this is just the amount of time it takes to kind of plan. This trip isn't in general, but like because it's fluid, and so we've
you
had
have to plan for the next destination with that same destination.
Yeah, so there's just a lot more going into it, and research, because we haven't been to a lot of these places, and so okay, where should we stay, or for the things that we like to do, and what's going to be right by us? Are there supermarkets there? What's public transport like? What activities do we want to do? Do we need to book things in advance? Because now with online bookings and things, it's months out for, I want to go to this museum, right? Or do this activity, right? It's months in advance. So there's things like that. There's a lot that goes into all of it. We've always planned our own vacations in the past, but those are a week, right? Or
this
10
is like
days.
Next level, or
and
like
this is
10 times level.
Yeah, a lot of places, and then logistics, right? As far as, especially in a lot of these different countries that we're going to, Philippines, Thailand, Indonesia, right? Navigating the small little flights that you have to jump around, or ferries or bus transport or things like that, and then just getting in touch with all of these different companies. And yeah, I mean, and we're making it sound like boo-hoo, right? You have the internet and you have phones and all that stuff. That's fantastic, but yeah, it's a lot. Maybe not unexpected, but just more than we thought. And it's nothing that we're not used to.
Something else that I don't think I was anticipating, and I don't think you were either. Every places that we've kind of stayed previously in Airbnbs or whatever, we're normally only staying for a week, maybe 10 days max. So staying for a month, essential items might not, like, you can get away with certain things not being at a place where we're here for a month. And so when we go to places now, we might have to buy some essential items.
What do you mean by essential items?
I would say, like, for example, here at this place, they didn't have a mixing bowl. So we had to buy a mixing bowl to even be able to cook with. It's those type of essential items. Like Fiji, they didn't have any bowls. So we ended up buying dog bowls because that's all we could find in the area.
We had to buy a rolling pin.
Measuring cups and stuff like that.
And again, we're in places a little bit longer, and we cook 95% of the time probably. That is a big thing for us. Probably not for everyone. Most people are not going to maybe cook as much as we do.
Yeah.
But those things are key for us. And so, yeah, having to buy, like last month, we bought some cookie sheets so that we can make pizza and cook some other things.
Cookies or something. The kids wanted to make cookies. For us, it's cheaper to buy some of those items. And some other things too with it is, like, it's like the standard house living. Sometimes people provide enough toilet paper for the whole time, for example, and sometimes they don't. It's the same with shampoo and conditioner, cleaning supplies, little things like that. So it's stuff like our laundry detergent. We've had to buy things like that. So it's just being mindful that you might have to buy stuff that maybe you're not used to when you go to stay at a place. Homeschooling, what do we think about homeschooling?
Overall, it's fantastic. I think the big one that we've talked about several times and come up with is it's more involved from our standpoint than we thought or hoped it was going to be, I guess. We thought, here, kids, here's your curriculum, here are the things you need to do, go and do, and we'll work on our stuff, and then we'll go out and explore and do other things.
Yeah. Sean and Brooke basically do that. They need a little bit of assistance occasionally, but...
and we have to check their work and go over it. Yes, but they're pretty self-sufficient. It's definitely more involved than we thought, and we have to assist, it's fine. It's just that's an unexpected.
It wasn't what we were planning, yeah.
Yeah, and it's great. And we've forgotten a lot of things over the years.
So it's probably good for us too. We're learning a lot.
And the kids have learned that we're not very smart. Brooke and Sean have done fantastic for the most part with that. And then Colin, our youngest, who is 10?
Yes.
Almost 11. He definitely needs some more structure.
He actually has to sit by one of us for school now and go over it and go through it and make sure he's doing it. So we can't just let him go do the work. We have to do the structure of school.
Which is good.
Which is fine. It's good for us. I feel like we're getting lots of quality time with them. Mm-hmm. And actually seeing what they're learning has been kind of fun, because normally at school you just hear about like a little bit. So other struggles. And these are struggles that the kids actually have brought up to us. And I think it's more so certain people are struggling with certain things a little more. And one of those is the social aspect of not having formal school is the social side of it. So they're missing friends and communicating with people outside of our family. They just miss their friends. That's sometimes what we get.
Yeah.
And then another one that maybe more so we have struggles with it, but they don't really like it a lot, is that they're on their screens a lot, because we had to digitize a lot of their schooling to make sure that we could travel with it. And so they are on screens a lot more than we would probably like, but it's working too. So it's what it is. But benefits that we have found and the kids have found is that it's only a few hours a day. And they actually really like that. We like that it's flexible too. So we had planned that they have school Monday through Thursday, but with that, we can actually change that. If a day's looking really, really nice and we want to go do something, we'll just push it around. And it's been really nice to be able to have flexibility of that. We also like that they have flexible topics.
So with that, right, they have the foundation things, your math, your English, your grammar, and all that other science and stuff. But then flexible, the kind of the supplemental stuff is like, hey, this month, or it's like maybe it's 6 weeks, I think that we're doing, is like a focus on finance and investing and budgeting and money. Right, let's learn about that type of content that you're not going to get in a regular, typical curriculum. Yeah. And so that's been really good and really nice to kind of insert some of that and do some of those other things that they're not getting a chance to get in regular school.
Like oceanology is another one that we've added, which is another thing, is that they actually get to learn about it and then they experience it.
As an example, when we went scuba diving in Fiji, we saw a really cool eel, a ribbon eel, and didn't know what it was, and then we read about it in their book, and we can see, right, the learning is applicable to real life and the things that we're doing on a regular basis, which is kind of fun.
Brooke mentioned this. She likes how it's more personalized. So if there's something that's super easy for her, she doesn't have to sit there and learn about it over and over again until the whole class gets it. She can move on and focus more on the things that are more difficult for her. And so she's actually really enjoying that aspect of it too. Packing. What essential items did we forget to pack? This is mine. I wish we would have packed collapsible measuring cups, because it would have saved us space, but then we would have had our measuring cups because we had to come and buy them. They were kind of difficult to find. So measuring cups and measuring spoons. If you could go back, how would you pack differently?
We've done pretty good at minimizing what we brought, but I would still even cut back what I brought. So as an example, I brought 3 swimsuits. I ended up leaving a swimsuit a couple months ago at another place because I'm like, oh, I can deal with 2. Socks, I have too many socks for some reason. Look at what you're gonna bring, and that's cut that, and then look at it again a couple days later, and then cut it even more. I will caveat it as we're not like the fanciest people, and so we don't dress like go out and have fancy dinners and do all these things, and we're in a lot of beach locations, at least for the first, 9 months?
Well, we also chose places that were warmer.
And so, right, we don't need as many clothes because it's not cold weather climate. We're in swimsuits a lot and flip-flops and a t-shirt.
And we have a washer and dryer everywhere that we're staying.
So minimal amount of clothing. We do wash every few days, and we can pick up a t-shirt here and get rid of the crap that, falls apart. And yeah, so anyway, I think it's just not so much that we brought the wrong things, but we brought too much even
of what felt like nothing.
Yeah, and we still had 1 bag apiece. It's funny you realize you don't need that many things when it comes down to it.
Yeah, it's true. Something that I just have on my personal note is, here we are filming this. I ended up buying a new camera lens last month because I wanted a better zoom. So it's more like, maybe if you're going to document, think through some of the things. Is it going to zoom as much as you want? The quality going to be there? And try to pack as light as possible. Because again, you have limited amount of kilograms to your carry-on bags. What essential items did you pack that you couldn't live without?
Yeah, our shopping bags, because again, another change outside of the United States. Everywhere in the United States, you go to a store and you get free shopping bags.
Maybe not everywhere now.
Mostly, right? Yeah. It's starting to change a little bit, but you can still get that most places. Outside, you need shopping bags, and those have been
so nice.
Yeah, so nice everywhere we've gone, and they're good just outside of the grocery store as well, packing lunches and things like that as we go out and about. Those have been really good, and they pack down to about this big.
I would say one of our things is power converters. We have 2 big power converters, and that's something that you have to have when you travel anyways outside of your home country. So quality power converters is really important. Another thing is
First aid kit. So that one's come in handy a lot with the boys. But all of us really, just with Band-Aids, gauze,
moleskin for
Yeah.
blisters.
Neosporin, scissors.
We just put like medicine in there too, Tylenol.
Yeah.
Like just the odd and end things.
But that's been nice because the kids have gotten hurt, or we've gotten hurt or cut when we're out hiking or at the beach or other places, and it's been nice to have just our
not that
first
big,
aid
yeah.
kit and pull that out and have what you need.
Another essential item is those measuring cups that we talked about. Because we cook all the time, measuring cups are essential for us. Then we have some nice to haves, which we just thought we'd mention, is we have a clothesline that we can put up anywhere just to hang dry swimsuits or whatnot. The snorkeling stuff that we packed that fills up one bag is a nice to have, but it's something that we're glad we packed it.
That one's a must have for us.
Another thing is travel games. We are really glad that we have some travel games.
Well, yeah, and they're not just while we travel. They're here where we're staying. We just can play games as a family and just have something to do other than
Sit around and look at each other,
Yeah,
or be
or-
on our tablets,
exactly.
or on the TV.
yeah, if we're not out and about.
What advice would you give to another family considering a year-long trip?
This is from me, and I just say just do it. There's a million reasons and excuses not to go. At the end of the day, just go. You're going to love it. It's not always easy by any means, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah.
And the experiences you have with your kids and your family, like you're never gonna regret that. And
That's ultimately why we
is
did it.
to spend time with our kids and have these incredible experiences. And so just go.
What are your top tips for staying organized and efficient while traveling?
Organized and efficient. I don't know how organized and efficient we are, but the things that have worked for us is just Google tools, right? So spreadsheets, docs, calendar, right? That we can keep track of all the budgeting and all of the planning and all of the things that we have to
Kid
do.
documents for school.
And you can have them online and then work with them offline and all the nice things there and
Share with each other.
Yeah, we can collaborate as a family with a lot of these things. So as we make the kids do research on where we're going and what they want to do and what they find interesting. And so we keep it in a doc so we can all collaborate together and they can put their input on what they want to do and what they want to see at that place.
We do notes on our phone for grocery lists, so that's like...
Yeah, and you can collaborate on
Yeah.
that. And just all the technological tools are probably the big nice things that make it easy to be efficient.
I would say with the
organized.
calendar too is make sure you put the time zone of where that event's going to happen, and we do it on a family calendar so we all have access to it, but actually specifying the time zone is really important because then once you get there it's in the right time zone. What are the most valuable lessons we've learned from our travels so far?
I think a big one is that like the things that you think are important in life like aren't really that important, or the things you get caught up in and focused on kind of the day-to-day type of stuff it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme, and what really matters is like the relationships with your family and the memories that you make together and experiences you go through, and so that's kind of the big one that really stands out.
Mine was that we take our infrastructure in the United States for granted. So that's like hot water, running water, internet.
How about a trash system?
Yeah, a trash system. The basic infrastructure of a place we take for granted of that. How did our actual expenses compare to our original budget? Did we underestimate or overestimate our travel budget?
Yeah, so finances, this is a big one. We definitely underestimated, and I think the big categories we underestimated that was housing. And
I would say transportation and airlines.
Really?
Yeah, that's where I didn't calculate enough.
I didn't think housing was going to be as much as it is every month. Granted, we do choose to stay in better locations because I prefer to have walking access 10 minutes to a beach versus having to drive 20, 30 minutes and try and find parking, and then you do have a car expense and you do have either or public transportation or whatever it is. So I'll trade, right? I won't have a car that month, but I can walk to the beach or
Safety.
Other things, right? Yeah, safety, right? We're not going to mess around with something like that with our kids with us.
And also feels clean.
Yeah, right? We're not going to stay in a place that we wouldn't feel comfortable staying in. I mean, especially when we're staying there for a month, right? So it makes a big difference like that. And so, yeah, maybe it's a little bit more on that end, but we're willing to pay that for some of those conveniences, I guess, and nice to haves. But
yeah. Were there any unexpected costs that we didn't account for?
So you mentioned it before. A couple places we rented a car when we weren't expecting to rent a car, so that was one, which we're glad we did. And I'd say if you're on the fence about it, for a location, maybe wait till you get there potentially and see how it is the first few days and then grab one if you're like, yeah, we need one, or maybe just grab one, here and there during that time frame. But we haven't regretted those places we've gotten a car. Bag fees, we talked about that earlier. We weren't anticipating having to check our bags a lot, so we've learned from that and we've gotten tickets now that include baggage.
Yeah, that save us now.
Yeah, and then the transit visa going through New Zealand, we're not expecting that cost. So just some of those costs, but outside of that, there wasn't anything huge that's popped up that's out of the ordinary.
Yeah. What strategies do we use to save money while traveling?
Biggest one is we cook. One, we like to cook and eat at home, and so that's not a big thing for us because we've done that before. And don't get us wrong, we still go out and we still eat and enjoy the food and locally, because you have to do that while you travel. Like, that's one of the best things about traveling. But we cook a lot, and so that helps save money. The second biggest thing we do to try and save money is just realizing that we can't do everything at every place we go, right? So like as an example, here in Sydney, I think it'd be awesome to do the Harper Bridge climb, right? Where you climb to the top of the Sydney Harper Bridge, and that'd be pretty sweet and really fun to do. At the end of the day, I chose not to do that because it would have been cool, but did I need to do it? No, and I'd rather spend that maybe scuba diving next month in Indonesia versus doing that here in Sydney. And so I kind of trade off doing this for that and just understanding you can't do everything. So you still want to do a lot of things, right? And experience where you're at, but you just can't do everything because that would just blow the budget out of the water.
So I think it's something that was a little difficult for us at first, was just that mind shift change of vacation compared to this is our everyday living. It's also still difficult sometimes today, because if we were on vacation, we probably would have just done it, but we can't do that because we're on a budget. Something that we've had to learn traveling full time is you have to limit just a little bit.
And there are some times you just go ahead and say, yeah, we're just going to go ahead and do that. And maybe next month we'll cut something out, right? But you kind of balance that where you can.
Something else that we've learned is ensure that you have a debit card that is low fees or no fees for international ATM withdrawals, because there's been certain countries that we do have to use cash. Australia has not been that whatsoever, but Fiji, for example, all cash. So we needed an ATM for that, so make sure that you have that. But with that too is also make sure that your credit card is international friendly. You don't have fees if you use it for international currency.
Last one here, use public transportation, obviously where it makes sense. Here in Sydney, it's been fantastic. There's tons of buses and trains and all kinds of ferries, right? All the things.
And they have nice apps now too to help you organize your trip.
Yeah, use public transit and cut costs there when you can.
How did we track our finances while being on the road?
We mentioned this earlier, we use a spreadsheet that Meg made up, which is fantastic. It's by location. So every location we have a new tab, and it has all the things, right? The airline costs, the accommodation. That's
what we're going to share next is our actual costs, and that the breakdown is exactly all those categories that you're talking about. So.
Yeah, but we keep track of everything. So all the spend, we go to the grocery store, we put it down.
If you're using a little bit of cash, we're still writing it down.
If it costs $2, right? Like parking, whatever it is, we're keeping track.
Even if we used it for the bathroom, like some places you have to pay for the bathroom, right? That would be going in the expense.
Yeah. So anyway, we're keeping track of everything. We have it all in the spreadsheet so that we can track that. We have the budget for that month, and so all that goes against it, and we can see all that we're spending against that budget and see that deduction coming down. And so we can kind of allocate and say, okay, cool, we're ahead. Maybe we can go do that other thing we thought about doing, or maybe this month's really tight and we're not going to do that.
Yeah, and sometimes we do really well on some months that will like, okay, we can use that for the next month.
Yeah,
So.
which probably isn't the best thing, but yeah, it happens. So, but yeah, we keep track in a spreadsheet, and we have all that broken down.
This is something I wish, like before we left, people would have had a better breakdown on average. How much do we spend as a family of 5 for a month? What we average for all of these. So we have accommodation, flight, transportation.
Is transportation rental car included?
That's rental car. So that would be transportation is rental car, buses, trains, ferries.
I think parking's also included
Yeah,
in there. Uber's included in there.
Is that-
Just getting around outside of like the flight to get there and stuff.
So whatever the flight, if we were taking a train to get to a location, that would probably be the flight. So transportation is anything when you're at the location. Groceries is anything that we buy from a grocery store. So that's
Or a market.
Or a market.
Depending on what it is, right? So like at a market, if you get lettuce and tomato or fruit or whatever, that's going under groceries, right? Stuff that we use in the kitchen.
Eating out.
That's anything, restaurants, snacks, eating out. Like we bought some croissants this morning and some other little treats, right? That's eating out.
So then we have phones, and phones, we still are paying for services in America. We have a super cheap plan, but then also on top of it, we do get some data for wherever we're at. So that way we can still communicate with people back home, but also have data to be able to look at maps and stuff outside. Activities, I think our biggest expense for activities is diving. That's something to note, that this is our breakdown and we might do things differently than other people do. So take it for what it is. Insurance is our travel insurance. So that's for healthcare plus flight delay, baggage loss, all that stuff. So that is actually a pretty big expense every month. And then our last one is our dog. It's for his food and all that stuff. So we average for a month $11,786, which is
more than we thought it was going to be.
Yeah. But when you break it down per person, it actually feels a lot more reasonable to me, where if we broke it down per person, it's $2,357 a month that you'd be spending as one person. And we also talked about it too, because this is for a whole month, that cost. And we would spend that for all of us to go somewhere for 10 days on a trip. So the fact that we're spending that in a month at a location rather than just 10 days at a location makes me feel a little bit better.
But still, it's a lot, right? And it adds up, but
yeah.
I don't know what else. You just say that. That's
what it is. Yeah. That's what we average for the first 6 months.
Yeah.
So.
We'll see what it does. I'm curious to see what it does in the next 6 months.
And we've also talked about trying to use points for things, and that has been a little difficult with our timeline with things.
I don't know if this needs to go in there or not, but also with the points, we booked a flight through points, and then the carrier made changes to the flight and told us, sorry, you can't talk to us. Go talk to the people you booked this through, right?
That was the problem. We did it through our credit card travel.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. So you
we should have taken the points directly to the airline and booked it.
But not a lot of people know that, because they're like, oh, my credit card has a site and I can book through my credit card with these points and make it easy. That was a nightmare, because then we couldn't even deal with the carrier and we had to go deal with the credit card company and
and then they couldn't deal with us because it was with the carrier. It was not fun. So we have not done it since. But we also were trying to book on points because it's only one way. We were also having issues about getting flights. So yeah, we would like to use points, but it just hasn't come into play.
So if anyone out there knows how to use points and are masters at using points, let us know, because we're newbies at the point thing. We're not very
good at it, I guess. Yeah, this is our 6-month check-in, and our average cost is per month on traveling, and we will see how that changes in the next 6 months and do a whole year breakdown. Yeah, there you go.